Trent Somerville was sitting 12 feet away from me in that courtroom. And the woman he had been sleeping with was sitting right behind him. 12 feet. I counted them. Because when your whole life is collapsing, you count things. Distance. Seconds. Breaths. Lies. He looked relaxed. Not nervous. Not ashamed. Not even defensive. Relaxed. Like this divorce hearing was just a dentist appointment he needed to get through before grabbing lunch. His jaw was clean-shaven. Blue tie. Gray suit. The same one he wore to his cousin's wedding 2 summers ago when he told me I was the only woman he'd ever love. And behind him, Sabrina Feld. Legs crossed. Chin lifted. Arms folded loosely in her lap like she was watching a play. My play. She wasn't fidgeting. She wasn't whispering. She looked satisfied. Like someone who had already mentally rearranged the furniture in my house. The courtroom smelled like old paper and air conditioning. The kind of dry, stale air that makes your throat tighten. My lawyer, Constance Bellamy, Connie, stood up beside me. Her chair made a small scraping sound against the floor. And she said 5 words. Your Honor, one more witness. The room didn't go silent like in the movies. It went silent in a real way. The air conditioner clicked. Someone shifted in the back row. A pen dropped somewhere to my left. My chest locked. Because I knew who it might be. And I whispered, barely audible. No, it can't be. The back doors opened. And the second Trent saw who walked in. His smile collapsed. Not slowly. Not subtly. It disappeared. Gone. Like someone pulled a plug inside him. And for the first time in 9 months, I saw fear. My name is Arya Marquez. I'm 32 years old. 9 months ago, I thought I had a normal life. Not glamorous. Not dramatic. Just steady. I worked as a payroll coordinator for a regional trucking company in Wilmington, Delaware. $52,000 a year. It wasn't flashy money. But it paid the mortgage. Paid the electric bill. Paid for groceries. Paid for the little weekend dinners at Iron Hill when Trent and I wanted to pretend we were the kind of couple who had everything figured out. I married Trent when I was 24. We met when I was 22. 4th of July party in Bear, Delaware. He spilled lemonade on my sandals. He apologized like it was the worst crime in American history. Then he made a joke about how he clearly needed supervision around beverages. I laughed. He was tall. Easy smile. Strong handshake. The kind of man who looked directly at you when you spoke. He made me feel seen. And when you're 22 and someone makes you feel seen, that feels like destiny. He ran an auto detailing business. 2 locations. One on Kirkwood Highway. One near Newark. He handled the business money. I handled the house. That was the arrangement. And I never questioned it. Because I never had a reason to. The reason came in April. On a Tuesday. In an envelope that was already half open. It was a Chase credit card statement. Addressed to Trent. At our home. But for an account I had never seen before. At first, I almost tossed it into his business pile. But the envelope flap hadn't sealed properly. And my eyes caught a number. $1,740. Jewelry store. King of Prussia Mall. Below that. $489. Boutique Hotel. Cape May, New Jersey. Then. $67. Florist. Random Tuesday. My birthday is in November. Valentine's Day had already passed. Our anniversary was in June. I stood in the kitchen holding that paper. The refrigerator hummed behind me. And I thought. Who was getting flowers on a Tuesday in April? That was the first crack. Not screaming. Not crying. Just confusion. That night, I asked him. Calm voice. No accusation. Just, "Hey, what's this card?" He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Didn't hesitate. He looked at me like I was being adorable. Like I had misunderstood something simple. "It's business," he said. Smooth. Warm. Rehearsed. The jewelry? A watch for a fleet account manager who brought referrals. The hotel? Strategy retreat with his shop managers. The flowers? Client's wife helped secure a contract. Every answer landed gently. Neatly. Perfectly wrapped. And when someone you love looks at you like you're being silly, you want to believe them. So I tried. But I didn't throw the statement away. Something in my stomach tightened. The same instinct that once told me lemonade on sandals was clumsy, not romantic. I folded the paper. Put it in a shoebox. Under the guest bathroom sink. Didn't tell anyone. That's not true. I told one person. Gretchen Somerville. Trent's younger sister. My friend. Or so I thought. We had lunch every other week for 6 years. She knew how I took my coffee. She knew I was afraid of escalators. She knew I cried during dog food commercials. I trusted her. We were sitting at a small cafe on Concord Pike. Sunlight coming through the windows. I showed her the statement. She squeezed my hand. Said she'd look into it. 24 hours later. Trent came home furious. Not defensive. Not apologetic. Furious. He accused me of trying to poison his family. Said I was spreading lies. Gretchen had told him everything. Every word. Every tear. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. Because I realized. I had no one. My parents were in Tucson, Arizona. 2,400 miles away. I had built my entire adult life inside the Somerville world. Trent's business. Trent's family. Trent's circle. And suddenly, I was standing alone in the middle of it. And the walls were closing in. 5 months passed. April to August. And instead of pulling back, Trent leaned in. He came home later. 9. 10. Sometimes midnight. His phone lived face down on the counter. And here's the detail that still makes my skin crawl. He started showering immediately when he walked in. Every night. Even if it was 11 p.m. Even if he had just been at the shop. The man who used to fall asleep watching ESPN was suddenly obsessed with washing himself clean. You don't shower like that unless you're trying to erase something. The financial squeeze started in July. I logged into our joint Bank of America account one Monday morning. $11,200 transferred. To a business operating account I couldn't access. I asked him. Equipment upgrades. New pressure washer system. Kirkwood Highway location. The following Saturday. I drove past both shops. Slowly. Casually. No new equipment. Same peeling decals. Same cracked hoses. Same faded signs. $11,200. Gone. Nothing changed. Then he changed the savings account password. Just like that. One morning I couldn't log in. Security update, he said. I'll send it later. He never did. He reduced his deposit into our joint account. From $3,200 a month to $1,800. My salary covered the $1,640 mortgage. That left me $160. For groceries. Gas. Utilities. Life. I started bringing leftover spaghetti for lunch. 4 days in a row. My coworker Janine asked if I was on a carb cleanse. I joked. She laughed. Mine cracked in the middle. Then came the barbecue. Late August. Gretchen hosted. I wasn't invited. No call. No message. Nothing. I found out through Instagram. Because that's how modern heartbreak works. Through filtered photos. There was the whole Somerville family. Burgers. Corn. Sparklers. And in the background, standing beside Pollyanna, Trent's mother, was her. Sabrina. Laughing. Comfortable. At home. Pollyanna handed her a paper plate with a burger. Like she belonged. Like she had always belonged. That picture burned. Because Pollyanna was mom to me for 8 years. And in one photo, I had been erased. 2 weeks later, Trent filed for divorce. He filed first. His attorney demanded 60/40ths in his favor. The business, which he bragged made over $400,000 a year, was suddenly valued at $185,000. The house we bought for $340,000. Listed at $280,000. And in the petition, one sentence I will never forget. Arya contributed minimally to the growth and maintenance of marital assets. Minimally. 8 years. Minimally. That afternoon, I parked at the Wawa on Route 202. Engine off. Hands shaking. And I cried for 40 minutes. Ugly crying. The kind where your face forgets how to arrange itself. I had $3,100 in my personal account. No local family. No allies. And a husband who had just legally declared I was worth almost nothing. That was the day I realized. Love isn't blind. It's expensive. And I had paid full price. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. 5:17 a.m. The house was quiet in that strange way it only is before sunrise. The kind of quiet that feels heavy. Trent was asleep beside me. On his back. Mouth slightly open. Breathing steady. He looked peaceful. And I stared at him and thought. Who are you? Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just honestly. Because the man I married used to mumble in his sleep. Used to roll toward me. Used to reach for my hand. Now he slept like I wasn't there. Like I was already gone. I got out of bed carefully so the mattress wouldn't shift. I walked to the kitchen. The floor felt cold under my feet. I made coffee and didn't turn the lights on. Just stood there in the dim early morning light and stared at the backyard. 8 years. 8 years of shared grocery lists. Shared passwords. Shared inside jokes. And suddenly I felt like a guest in my own house. That was the morning I decided I needed quiet. Not the house quiet. Real quiet. Somewhere no one knew my name. During my lunch break that day, I drove to the Wilmington Public Library. I didn't even know why. I just needed to be somewhere that wasn't work and wasn't home. Somewhere neutral. The building smelled like old books and dust and something faintly sweet. It felt safe. Libraries don't judge you. They just hold stories. I walked through the aisles slowly. Self-help. Finance. Relationships. I didn't want a romance novel. I didn't want fiction. I wanted instructions. How to survive when the ground disappears under your feet. There wasn't a book with that title. So I pulled one off the shelf. Something about financial recovery after divorce. I wasn't even divorced yet. But I felt like I was already falling. When I opened the book, a business card slid out. It landed near my shoe. I stared at it. On the back, written in blue ink. She's worth it. Call her. The front read. Constance Bellamy. Attorney at law. Family law and asset recovery. I picked it up. My fingers were shaking. Because something about it felt intentional. Like the universe had placed it there. Or maybe some other woman had left it behind after fighting her own war. I stood there between the shelves for a full minute. Heart pounding. Then I stepped outside. Sat on a bench. And dialed the number before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the third ring. Voice steady. Direct. Bellamy Law. I almost hung up. Instead, I said. I think my husband is hiding money. There was a pause. Not a shocked pause. A thoughtful one. Then she said. Come see me. Her office was on Market Street. Second floor. Above a sandwich shop. The stairwell smelled like roasted peppers and warm bread. The door had frosted glass with her name etched in bold letters. Inside. No fancy decor. No sleek marble desk. Just a sturdy wooden desk. Stacks of files. A framed cross-stitch on the wall. Assets don't hide themselves. I almost laughed. Connie Bellamy was 58. Short gray hair. Broad shoulders. Reading glasses hanging from a chain. She stood when I entered. Firm handshake. Not aggressive. Not gentle. Grounded. She looked like someone who did not scare easily. She poured coffee from a pot that looked like it had been working since 1998. Then she leaned back in her chair and said, Tell me what you got. I brought the shoebox. It felt small on her desk. Like it couldn't possibly hold 8 years of marriage. But when I opened it, it felt like opening something fragile. The Chase statement. Venmo screenshots. Photos from Instagram. Printed bank summaries. She put on her glasses. Read quietly. Nodded once. Then she looked up. These numbers, she said calmly, are creative. Creative. I almost smiled through the anxiety. Then her tone shifted. This isn't just an affair. She tapped the statement. This is dissipation of marital assets. I blinked. She explained slowly. Every dollar he spent on another woman during the marriage was not his personal money. It was marital money. Which meant recoverable. But it gets worse, she added. If he's routing money through his business to hide it, that's fraud. Fraud. The word hit different. Affair was painful. Fraud was criminal. She filed subpoenas that same week. Business bank records. Payroll records. Tax filings. Don't react, she told me. Don't confront him. Just collect. Collect. I could do that. I worked in payroll. I lived in spreadsheets. I understood numbers. And numbers? Don't lie. People do. October came quietly. Then the records arrived. Connie called me in. She didn't explain over the phone. Which meant it was bad. I sat across from her desk. She slid the first document toward me. Payroll records. Employee list. My eyes scanned. Manager. Technician. Detailing specialist. Then. Sabrina Feld. Marketing consultant. Salary, $4,800 per month. My stomach dropped. 14 months on payroll. I grabbed a pen automatically. 14 times $4,800. $67,200. Paid to the woman my husband said didn't exist. Paid from a business that was half mine. I swallowed hard. Connie didn't soften it. She filed tax forms. Signed contracts. For a position that produced nothing. No website. No campaign. No branding. She was being paid. To exist. Then Connie handed me another sheet. Gretchen Somerville. Administrative support. $1 $200 per month. I stared at the name. Gretchen. The one who told him everything. The one who hosted the barbecue. The one who cut me out. $1 $200 per month. For a job she never did. It clicked slowly. Loyalty had a price tag. And she had been cashing it. Then came the third document. An LLC. Coastal Ventures, DE. I had never heard of it. Regular transfers. $93000 over 2 years. Connie leaned back. That, she said, is a parking lot. A place to hide money. I felt cold. I added it up. $67 $200. $14 $400. $93000. $7 $600 in Venmo payments. $182 $200. While I was eating leftover spaghetti. While I was crying in a Wawa parking lot. While I was questioning my sanity. He wasn't just cheating. He was dismantling my future. Piece by piece. Quietly. Strategically. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I sat at the kitchen table at 5:30 a.m. Laptop open. Flash drive plugged in. And I organized. Color-coded folders. Date stamps. Cross-referenced entries. Transaction logs. Venmo histories. Payroll anomalies. Every document labeled. Every pattern highlighted. Because I finally understood something. He thought I was weak. He thought I wouldn't fight. He thought I couldn't read numbers. He forgot what I do for a living. People always said payroll was boring. But boring people notice everything. And every number in Trent Somerville's life was screaming. For the first time in 9 months. I didn't feel scared. I felt methodical. And methodical feels like control. It feels like calm before something bigger. Then Connie called again. Her voice was different this time. Measured. Careful. Someone from his family contacted me. My chest tightened. Not Gretchen. Someone else. Someone silent. Someone who had watched everything. She wants to talk. Who? I asked quietly. There was a pause. Then. Pollyanna Somerville. Trent's mother. The woman I watched hand a burger to Sabrina. The woman who hadn't called me once. The woman I had written off. I sat on the edge of my guest room bed. Because that's where I slept now. And I stared at the wall. 3 full minutes. Because blood always wins. Mothers choose their sons. Even when they're wrong. That's what I believed. I was wrong. And being wrong about her would change everything. Escalation, when silence starts talking. When Connie said Pollyanna wanted to talk, I didn't feel relief. I felt suspicion. Because the last image I had of that woman was her standing in Gretchen's backyard, holding a paper plate, smiling at Sabrina like she was welcoming a new daughter. That image had been on my phone for weeks. Burned into me. So when Connie said she reached out, I didn't think ally. I thought trap. Still, I agreed to meet. Not at the office. Not at the house. Somewhere neutral. We chose a small diner on Route 13. Late afternoon. Almost empty. I got there early. Of course I did. I always arrive early when something matters. I sat in a booth near the window and watched cars pass. My hands were cold even though it wasn't cold outside. When Pollyanna walked in, she looked smaller. Not physically. Just quieter. She wore a light gray cardigan. Hair pulled back. No makeup. She spotted me immediately. There was a hesitation in her step. Just half a second. Then she walked over. Hi, Arya. Her voice wasn't warm. But it wasn't cold either. It was careful. I stood. We didn't hug. We sat down. The waitress poured coffee. Left us alone. For a full 10 seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said something I did not expect. I'm sorry. Simple. No dramatic tone. Just flat truth. I stared at her. Sorry for what? I asked quietly. For believing him. She looked down at her hands. Until the barbecue. My heart started beating faster. Because I knew what night she meant. She took a breath. After everyone left, he stayed. She told me he had a few beers. That he was loud. That he was proud. She told me he bragged. About the business making over $400,000 a year. About how I wouldn't fight. About how I didn't have the spine. She swallowed hard before saying the next part. He said Coastal Ventures was his escape fund. I felt heat rush up my neck. She continued. He called paying Sabrina through payroll the cleanest trick in the book. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup. And then, she said softly, he laughed. She didn't look at me when she said it. He laughed about gutting you. There it was. The word. Gutting. Like I was livestock. Like I was an obstacle. Not a person. I couldn't speak. Because suddenly the diner felt too small. Too bright. Too real. Pollyanna kept talking. He sounded like Gerald. Gerald Somerville. Trent's father. The man who built the original detailing shop. The man who died 7 years ago. I had only known him briefly before he passed. Charming. Loud. Confident. She told me Gerald had done the same thing to her. Hidden money. Secret accounts. Another woman. She stayed quiet back then. Chose family. Chose loyalty. And when he died, she discovered the business was entirely in his name. The house was mortgaged. The accounts were drained. She rebuilt her life from a rental apartment in Bear, Delaware. Front desk at a veterinary clinic. Used car. Security deposit. Starting over at 50. I heard my husband and my son's voice, she said. And I couldn't unhear it. There were tears in her eyes now. Not dramatic ones. Old ones. Heavy ones. I won't help him do to you what was done to me. That was the moment the ground shifted again. But this time. In my favor. Over the next 2 weeks, Pollyanna met with Connie. Gave a formal statement. Swore under oath. Detailed every word Trent said that night. Connie added her to the witness list. 14 days before trial. Fully legal. No ambush. Just timing. When Trent received the updated witness disclosure, he called me. First time in weeks. His voice wasn't calm anymore. What did you do? He demanded. I hired a lawyer, I said. He laughed, but it sounded thin. You think my own mother is going to testify against me? I don't know, I replied evenly. But she called first. Silence. Then. You're blowing this up over one mistake. One mistake. 14 months of payroll fraud. Hidden LLC. 6-figure transfers. One mistake. I didn't gut you, he snapped. Don't exaggerate. He hung up before I could answer. That night he didn't come home. Didn't text. Didn't call. I didn't ask. 2 days later, the pressure increased. My direct supervisor called me into her office. Closed the door. There was a complaint, she said carefully. About you discussing personal legal matters at work. I knew immediately. Gretchen. She had shown up once before. Now she was escalating. "I don't discuss my case at work," I said calmly. And it was true. I never had. But damage doesn't need truth to spread. It just needs volume. My supervisor nodded slowly. "I believe you. Just keep things clean. Keep things clean." The irony almost made me smile. After work that day, I sat in my car and stared at my steering wheel. My life was shrinking. Home wasn't safe. Family wasn't safe. Work wasn't safe. But something inside me was different now. I wasn't crying anymore. I was calculating. December arrived with sharp cold air and tension you could feel in your teeth. Trent reduced his deposit again. $1,200 this time. Mortgage still $1,640. Utilities rising. Groceries shrinking. He wanted me desperate. He wanted me tired. He wanted me to take the deal. 60/40ths in his favor. Quick signature. Walk away quietly. Connie filed a motion for temporary support. The judge granted a modest adjustment. Trent's face in court that day. Tight. Controlled. But irritated. He was losing small pieces of control. And it bothered him. Control was his oxygen. Christmas came. And for the first time in 8 years, I spent it alone. My parents begged me to fly to Tucson. I lied. Said work was busy. Truth? I couldn't afford the ticket. And I refused to let them see me broken. I sat on the living room floor Christmas morning. No tree. Just the faint glow of neighbor lights through the window. And I allowed myself 5 minutes. 5 full minutes to feel it. The betrayal. The humiliation. The loneliness. Then I stood up. Made coffee. Opened my laptop. And reviewed financial statements. Grief had a timer now. 5 minutes. Then back to work. Early January. 2 weeks before trial. Connie called me into her office. "Something else came in," she said. "More bank records. More transfers. But this time, there was a pattern. Coastal Ventures had purchased something. Not equipment. Not inventory. Real estate. A condo. Cape May, New Jersey. Purchased 8 months ago. Under the LLC. The same city as the boutique hotel. My throat went dry. He hadn't just funded an affair. He had built a life. A second life. With my money. Connie looked at me carefully. "You ready for this?" I nodded. Even though my hands were shaking. Because now it wasn't about sadness. It wasn't even about anger. It was about exposure. And exposure changes power. January 15th. The night before court. Trent came home early. First time in weeks. He stood in the kitchen doorway while I was labeling folders. "You really think you're going to win?" he asked. I didn't look up. "I think the numbers will." He stepped closer. "You're destroying the family." I finally looked at him. "No," I said quietly. "You did that." For a second. Just a second. I saw uncertainty. Then it disappeared. He smirked. "See you in court." He walked out. And I realized something important. He still thought this was a bluff. He still thought I was scared. He still thought I didn't have anything real. He had no idea. And that ignorance was about to cost him everything. Psychological breakdown, the quiet before collapse. The night before court, I didn't sleep. I laid in the guest room bed staring at the ceiling. The house felt different. Like it already belonged to someone else. Every sound felt louder than normal. The refrigerator humming. The heater kicking on. A car passing outside. And in between those sounds. Silence. The kind of silence that forces your brain to talk. What if the judge doesn't believe you? What if his lawyer twists everything? What if Pollyanna changes her mind? What if you lose? I turned on my side. Stared at the wall. There was a small crack in the paint near the baseboard. I had meant to fix it months ago. I used to care about small things like that. Now I was fighting for my financial survival. And still. A voice inside whispered. You should have seen this earlier. That's the worst part of betrayal. You replay everything. Every late night. Every shower. Every business meeting. Every time he rolled away in bed instead of toward you. You ask yourself. Was I stupid? Or did I just love him? There's a difference. But at 2:47 a.m., it doesn't feel like one. At 4:30 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I went into the kitchen. Made coffee. Didn't turn the lights on. The house was dim blue from early morning light. I opened my laptop one more time. Not because I needed to. Because I needed control. Every folder was organized. Every document labeled. Every transaction accounted for. The flash drive sat beside me. Small. Silver. Ordinary. Inside it. Over $182,000 worth of deception. I stared at it and thought. This is what 8 years came down to. A tiny piece of metal. And the truth. At work that day, I felt detached. Janine asked if I was okay. I smiled. I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I was hollow. There's a stage in betrayal where anger burns. Then there's a stage where it drains out completely. What's left is exhaustion. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't even shaking. I was just tired. Tired of thinking. Tired of defending. Tired of being the only one who seemed to care about right and wrong. During lunch, I sat in my car. Didn't eat. Just stared at the dashboard. For a moment. Just a small, quiet moment. I considered taking the deal. Sign it. Walk away. Start over somewhere else. No court. No testimony. No exposure. Just freedom. But then another thought followed. If you walk away quietly, he does this again. Maybe to someone else. Maybe worse. And something in me stiffened. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about pattern. About history repeating. About Gerald. About Pollyanna rebuilding from nothing. About a son who thought women couldn't read a bank statement. I closed my eyes. And I made a decision. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just firm. I would not be quiet. That evening, Pollyanna called. Her voice sounded older than usual. Are you scared? She asked. Yes, I answered honestly. So am I, she said. We both laughed softly. Not because it was funny. Because fear shared feels smaller. I should have called you sooner, she added. I swallowed. Why didn't you? Silence. Then. Because I didn't want to believe my son was capable of this. There it was. The real wound. When your child becomes the man who hurt you. That kind of pain is complicated. I won't back out, she said firmly. I already signed the affidavit. I felt something shift in my chest. Relief. Not complete. But enough. Court morning arrived gray and cold. January 16th. I wore a navy blouse. Simple black slacks. No jewelry except my small stud earrings. I had stopped wearing my wedding ring weeks ago. The skin beneath it still felt lighter. Strange how fast skin adjusts. The courthouse felt colder than outside. Security check. Metal detector. The smell of old carpet. I saw Trent before he saw me. Standing near his attorney. Confident posture. Laughing lightly. Relaxed. Like this was routine. Then Sabrina walked in. Black coat. Hair straightened. Lipstick darker than usual. She stood behind him again. Not beside. Behind. But close enough. Like support. My stomach tightened. I wanted to look away. But I didn't. I let myself see it. All of it. Because denial was what got me here in the first place. I wasn't doing that again. Inside the courtroom, I counted the feet again. 12. Between us. 12 feet and 8 years. He didn't look at me. Not once. The hearing began. His lawyer spoke first. Confident. Polished. Used words like equitable distribution and market fluctuations. He painted a picture. Struggling business owner. Emotional wife. Unnecessary litigation. I sat still. Hands folded. Breathing steady. Then Connie stood. Her voice was calm. Clear. Not dramatic. Just factual. She introduced the payroll records. The LLC transfers. The condo purchase. The Venmo payments. She didn't rush. She didn't exaggerate. She just laid the numbers out like bricks. Each one solid. Each one heavy. Trent shifted in his seat. First time. His jaw tightened. But he still wore that faint smirk. Like he believed it wouldn't matter. Then Connie said it. Your Honor, one more witness. The room went quiet. Not movie quiet. Real quiet. Air conditioner clicking. Paper shuffling stopping. My chest locked. Because even though I knew, there's always a small fear. What if she doesn't come? What if she changes her mind at the last second? What if blood wins after all? The doors at the back opened. And Pollyanna Somerville walked in. Slow. Steady. Shoulders straight. She didn't look at me first. She looked at her son. And when Trent saw her, his smile collapsed. Not slowly. Instantly. His face drained. Because for the first time, he understood. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't noise. This wasn't emotion. This was evidence. And it was coming from his own blood. Pollyanna took the stand. Raised her right hand. Swore to tell the truth. And I felt something inside me crack. Not from pain. From release. Because no matter what happened next, I was no longer alone. But here's the part people don't tell you about justice. Even when truth walks into the room, you still have to survive hearing it out loud. And when Pollyanna began to speak. About the barbecue. About the bragging. About the laughing. About the word gutting. I felt something inside me unravel. Not because it was new information. But because it was confirmed. Publicly. Officially. He wasn't confused. He wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't misguided. He was deliberate. And that truth is heavier than betrayal. It's intentional harm. I gripped the edge of the bench to steady myself. My mind flashed to every moment I doubted myself. Every time I apologized. Every time I thought I was overreacting. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he thought I'd never fight back. That realization didn't break me. It hardened me. As Pollyanna stepped down from the stand, Trent wouldn't look at her. Not once. He stared straight ahead. Jaw locked. Hands clenched. For the first time since April, I saw him unsure. And that shift. That small crack. Felt like oxygen. But the hearing wasn't over. And neither was he. Because when a man like Trent realizes control is slipping, he doesn't surrender. He escalates. And I could see it in his eyes. This wasn't done. Not yet. Power shift, when control changes hands. When Pollyanna stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom felt different. Heavier. Just. They look for another angle. His lawyer stood quickly for cross-examination. Polished smile. Controlled tone. Mrs. Somerville, he began, isn't it true you and your son have had disagreements in the past? He was trying to paint her as emotional. Unstable. Bitter. Pollyanna didn't flinch. Yes, she said calmly. We disagree when he lies. A few quiet breaths shifted in the courtroom. The attorney tried again. You're aware this testimony could damage your relationship with your son permanently? Pollyanna looked at Trent. Really looked at him. I'm aware his actions already did that. No anger. No yelling. Just fact. That's what made it powerful. Trent's lawyer moved on quickly. Because he couldn't shake her. And for the first time since this began, I saw something flicker behind Trent's eyes. Not rage. Not embarrassment. Fear. After Pollyanna finished, Connie requested a short recess. We stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. My legs felt weak. Not from anxiety. From adrenaline. Connie leaned close. He's rattled, she whispered. I nodded. I felt it too. But rattled men are dangerous. Because when someone who thrives on control feels it slipping, they reach. And they don't always reach carefully. When we returned to the courtroom, Trent asked to address the judge directly. That wasn't planned. You could tell. His lawyer hesitated. But the judge allowed it. Trent stood. Smoothed his jacket. Took a breath. I made mistakes, he said. His voice softer now. Measured. But this narrative that I was trying to destroy my wife financially is exaggerated. Exaggerated. There it was again. He was reframing. He admitted small things. Downplayed big ones. He called Coastal Ventures a future expansion fund. He called Sabrina's salary temporary consulting support. He described the condo as an investment property. He avoided the word affair completely. He avoided the word fraud entirely. And the way he spoke. Calm. Confident. Like he believed language could clean the truth. But Connie was ready. She stood slowly. Your Honor, she said, we have documentation tying Coastal Ventures funds directly to the Cape May condominium purchase, including interior renovation expenses. She turned slightly. And we have payroll records confirming that Ms. Veld received consistent monthly compensation without producing any measurable business output. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She just stacked the facts. Brick by brick. And something in the judge's expression shifted. Not dramatically. Just subtly. Interest. Concern. Attention. That's when I realized. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about pattern. And patterns are hard to argue against. The hearing stretched for hours. Back and forth. Statements. Clarifications. Documents entered into evidence. By mid-afternoon, the exhaustion hit. But underneath it, there was something else. Steady. Solid. For 9 months, I had felt hunted. Cornered. Small. But sitting there, watching the evidence unfold, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt prepared. Every early morning at the kitchen table. Every folder labeled. Every number cross-referenced. It mattered. Because when someone tries to erase you, Organization becomes resistance. Then came the shift. The judge reviewed the financial discrepancies quietly for several minutes. The room was so still you could hear paper turning. Finally, he looked up. Given the evidence presented, he began slowly, this court finds sufficient indication of dissipation of marital assets and potential fraudulent transfer. Fraudulent transfer. The word hung in the air. Trent's face strained again. The judge continued. Temporary freezing of Coastal Ventures accounts is hereby ordered pending full forensic review. My heart skipped. Frozen. The account. The escape fund. Frozen. Forensic accountant will be appointed to evaluate full business revenue and asset valuation. That meant the $400,000 annual income would surface. Not the $185,000 fiction. And then, the line that shifted everything. Pending final distribution, the marital residence shall remain under joint protection, with no sale or transfer permitted. No forced sale. No stripping the house out from under me. No rushing me into a corner. The balance of power tilted. Not fully. But enough. Trent didn't look at me. He stared straight ahead. Hands clenched. Because freezing accounts is more than financial. It's symbolic. It means control is no longer unilateral. It means someone else is watching. And men like Trent hate being watched. The hearing adjourned for the day. Final ruling scheduled in several weeks. As people filed out, I stayed seated for a moment. Breathing. Just breathing. Because for the first time since April, I wasn't drowning. I wasn't winning yet. But I wasn't drowning. Outside the courthouse, the January air felt sharp against my face. Pollyanna stood near the steps. She looked tired. But lighter. We didn't hug immediately. We just stood there. Then she said quietly. He looked just like his father today. I nodded. But he's not his father, I replied. Because you didn't stay silent this time. Her eyes filled briefly. And for the first time since this started, she reached for my hand. Not out of obligation. Out of solidarity. But power shifts come with consequences. Because that evening, Trent finally called. Not angry. Not calm. Controlled. You think this is over? He asked quietly. I think the truth is out, I replied. You froze my accounts. The court did. Silence. Then. You don't understand how ugly this can get. There it was. The threat beneath the tone. Not direct. But implied. I already lived the ugly part, I said softly. And I survived it. He didn't respond immediately. And in that silence, I realized something. He wasn't used to me speaking like that. Not defensive. Not emotional. Just steady. He hung up without another word. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again. But this time, I wasn't organizing evidence. I was planning my future. For months, I had been reacting. Now I could think forward. If the forensic audit revealed full revenue. If dissipation was confirmed. If assets were rebalanced. I wouldn't just survive. I would rebuild. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in clarity. Because revenge is loud. Justice is structured. And structure was finally on my side. 2 weeks later, the forensic accountant's preliminary findings came in. Connie called me into her office again. This time, she was smiling. Not wide. Just knowing. Actual gross revenue last fiscal year, she said. I braced myself. 418,000. There it was. Not rumor. Not bragging. Fact. The business valuation would adjust. The condo tied directly to marital funds. Payroll fraud documented. The numbers were speaking loudly. And Trent was running out of places to hide. But here's the thing about men who think they're smarter than everyone else. When cornered, they gamble. And the gamble he made next would change everything. Because 3 days before the final hearing, Connie received something unexpected. An email from Sabrina Feld, requesting to speak alone, without Trent knowing. When Connie told me, my pulse jumped. Because when the other woman starts reaching out, it means cracks are spreading. And cracks break structures. The final hearing was approaching. The accounts were frozen. The truth was surfacing. But now, the woman who thought she had won wanted to talk. And that was not part of Trent's plan. But here's what nobody tells you about reconciliation. It doesn't happen in one conversation. It happens in small, quiet corrections. One behavior at a time. 3 months after my parents visited, there was another emergency. Not medical. Financial. My father's business partner had quietly withdrawn a large investment. A deal collapsed. Debt piled up faster than pride could handle. And this time, there was no sister to blame. No rumor to hide behind. Just reality. He didn't call immediately. He waited. Because pride doesn't disappear overnight. But eventually, he showed up at my clinic. Not as a father. As a man who needed help. He didn't ask for money. That's important. He asked for advice. And in that moment, the power dynamic that ruled my childhood shifted completely. The same man who once cut me off without hearing my side was now sitting across from me, listening carefully. Respectfully. Taking notes. Life has a way of balancing scales without drama. And I could have used that moment. I could have reminded him. You didn't attend my wedding. You believed her over me. You left me alone. But I didn't. Because revenge would have been easy. Leadership is harder. So I helped him restructure his debts. Connected him with someone I knew. Guided him step by step. Not to prove I was better. But because I was better than resentment. Later that evening, my mother called. She didn't talk about money. She said something else. He looks at you differently now. I asked, how? She paused. Like you're not his son anymore. That stung for half a second. Until she finished. Like you're someone he respects. And that's when it clicked. Respect feels different from authority. Authority demands. Respect observes. Authority controls. Respect acknowledges. For the first time in my life, my father wasn't trying to shape me. He was learning from me. And my sister? She started therapy. Not because I told her to. Because she saw what insecurity cost her. We had one honest conversation that changed everything. She asked me, "Do you hate me?" And I answered truthfully. No. I outgrew that. That sentence stayed with her. Because hatred keeps you tied to someone. Growth sets you free. Months turned into a year. Family dinners became lighter. There was laughter again. Real laughter. Not the forced, performative kind. My mother stopped narrating my sister's achievements as competition. My father stopped comparing. They started asking, "How are you, really?" And when parents finally ask that without agenda, healing accelerates. But here's the part most people don't expect. The true closure didn't come from apologies. Or from public defense. It came from something smaller. One afternoon, my father introduced me to someone new. A distant relative. He said, "This is my son." Pause. He's the one who never gave up. Not the doctor. Not the successful one. Not the one who proved us wrong. Just the one who never gave up. And suddenly, all those years of silence felt smaller. Because the narrative had changed. And this time, he changed it himself. Now listen carefully. If you're watching this and someone rewrote your story, you don't need to fight for the microphone. You build your own stage. And eventually, they come to sit in the audience. Not because you forced them. Because they realized they misjudged you. The biggest transformation wasn't my career. It wasn't the hospital hallway moment. It wasn't the apology. It was this. I stopped needing them to understand me. And once I stopped needing it, they finally did. That's the paradox. Validation comes when you're no longer chasing it. And here's the quiet truth most people never say out loud. Sometimes family betrays you not because they hate you, but because they don't know how to handle your potential. Your growth threatens their comfort. Your ambition exposes their fear. And insecure people don't always attack loudly. Sometimes they whisper lies. But consistency is louder than whispers. Today, there's peace. Not perfect peace, but earned peace. My parents sit in the front row of my life. Not as judges. As supporters. My sister calls me for advice. Not because she has to. Because she trusts me. And I sleep without replaying arguments in my head. That's the real victory. If you made it this far, let me leave you with this. Don't destroy your family to prove a point. Outgrow the version of yourself that needed their approval. Success isn't loud. Character is. And when character meets patience, time does the rest.